This segment is brought to you by JigMasters. Step up your game with high-quality performance jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, and more from JigMasters.com. And always, when in doubt, get the jig out.
Welcome to The Reel Down on Paddle and Fin with your hosts, Dan Perry and Jimmy Skinner, where we talk about everything tournament kayak fishing. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Reel Down on Paddle and Fin. If you're watching this on YouTube, every time I see that picture, I think, I see these little guys hold up these giant fish, and they're probably smaller fish than what that is. I legitimately want to lose weight just so my fish look bigger. That's the only point of losing weight for me.
I like food more than I like fishing, so I don't care.
That was an 8.3 in that picture, and I see some people holding up a 5, and it's like massive compared to that one.
That's all. Mine was only a 5.7, I think. It wasn't huge. No. I mean, it was huge, but it was like that thick, you know.
I got to drop some LBs to make my fish LBs go up. But all right. But how are you doing, Jimmy?
Pretty good. Getting through a little bit of back pain, but I'm making it.
Getting ready for a Invitational, though, huh? I'm getting ready for the Hobie and on Seminole, and you're getting ready for a Invitational.
Well, I'm fishing I won't be fishing the Invitational. I'll be fishing the KBF Trail.
That's right.
If I had fished, and I think you qualify for the Invitational by winning a trail event or something like that. Honestly, don't know. I've never looked that far into it. There's a tournament in Florida in January, and everybody knows that you go to fish Florida in January. So I'm going to jump on that bandwagon and hopefully catch a double-digit fish. The tournament's I'm just donating money.
Oh, and always have a shot down there?
That's true.
Yeah.
What about you, man? You got anything new going on?
No, just I painted all weekend. I didn't even get to. I want to go fishing. I got a bunch of new baits. I've been getting ready for the season, getting everything lined out, and I got all this stuff I want to try and I want to play with, but I just can't. I'm trying to get all that preseason house stuff done so I don't have to worry about it later. But I legitimately painted for 2 full days, and I still have 1 day left of just trim. So. Ugh. I'd be done. The house looks great, though. We talked about selling it. Still don't know yet. Might not.
Isn't it crazy?
Now the damn thing looks good.
Yeah. I know so many people that do that. They get their house ready for sale, and then they're like, man, I done put all this effort into it. I don't want to get rid of it now.
Yeah. Well, just the amount of money. I'm sure this is everywhere, but houses are going for so much money right now. We would make
quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We would make plenty of money here, but we're losing that money if we move. So, even if we pay a little bit more for a house, it might not be an upgrade enough to move. So that's kind of the position we're in. We might get an incremental, a little bit bigger yard, whatever, but I don't know if it'd be enough to go through the hassle of moving.
Yeah, heck with that, man.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a bitch moving, man. I don't want to do that again.
Same. I'm done. Yeah. I'd rather just travel. Not live anywhere.
Yeah. One day.
All right, dude. We got one new thing with the dugout deal. We still got the wow, I just froze. We still got the dugout reel down deal. I could not put those words together in my head right then. So with a purchase of any St. Croix Legend Extreme at regular price, you can still get the free Shimano SLX XT reel. Gear ratios may be limited, left or right-handed, same situation. Just make sure if you go to the store, you mention me and Dan and the Paddle and Fins where you heard it, and they'll hook you up with that deal. And if you can't make it, you can give them a call, mention the same thing, and they can ship it to you. So make sure and check it out. I'm sure by now there's probably not a lot of that left, but that's a killer deal. I mean, you're getting a $600 combo for a little over $400, basically. So jump on that. And then they're taking deposits on new Hobies, and they had some promising news on when they should be getting a delivery. They don't have the exact date yet, but if you're looking to get into a new Hobie for this coming up season, go ahead and call the dugout up, talk to Jamie and the guys. throw them a little deposit and get in line for a new Hobie.
That's right. And they have all, like, if you want, once you get it, they can rig it out, batteries, all the best stuff, batteries, graphs, that they do it all. So it's all in one place. They have all the Hobie accessories, life jackets, anything you need, and then load it up with baits. Dugout has it all.
I can tell you, I've never done it on a Hobie at the Dugout, but I have like bought a boat and picked it up in the store. And there's something extremely fun about like having the boat sitting on the floor at the store, running around and grabbing all the stuff you want, putting it on the boat. Then you get to know if it fits. And I don't know, it was really fun. And it was also extremely expensive, and I probably wouldn't do that again, but it was a good time.
If you're just thinking about a Hobie, whether a 180, 360, Outback, whatever it is, they have a pond there too. So you can go demo anytime. So even if you don't want to just pre-order one, you want to demo one, they literally have their own pond that you can fish and stock with fish. So you can pay $5 and go catch a big out there and go demo a new Hobie. So can't beat that.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, tonight we have a great show. This is the last of the 3-part series on grassroots trails from around the country. And tonight we're going up to the Northeast where I'm glad I'm not there right now. God bless these guys, because I'm sure it's cold and I could not live in that type of environment. But so we have Mike Reinhold from Kayak Anglers of Central Pennsylvania, Joshua Evans from Mid-Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing, and Jeremy Verab from New England Bass. And here they are. Hey guys, how y'all doing? Thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, glad to be here.
All right. So we'll get started with you, Josh. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into kayak fishing, and a little bit about your trail.
Yeah, man. So I'm Josh Evans. I'm out here in Maryland. I am one of the guys that helps run Mid-Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing. I initially got into kayak fishing, probably about 7-8 years ago, as an alternative to kind of getting some recreational therapy and getting out on the water and de-stressing. I was active duty Army at the time. And
thank you for your service.
Hey man, happily. But I went to a Heroes on the Water event and was introduced to it and fell in love. I mean, the places you could go, the price of purchasing and then maintaining a kayak versus a bass boat was night and day. And a couple of the guys that happened to volunteer at that HOW event told me about Mid-Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing. And I went out a couple weeks later, hit an event, and here I am all these years later helping run the damn thing. So it's pretty cool.
Isn't it crazy how it cascades, it like just snowballs into that?
It really is. It came full circle.
Yeah, I got into it, didn't think I'd ever take kayak fishing that serious. Never thought I'd fish tournaments, and then boom, I was a director, and now I'm running a trail, and you sit back and like, damn, what happened?
Well, I'll tell you my first experience with an MAKBF event. I showed up. I had a little Dick's Sporting Goods special. I think it was the Old Town Trip Angler 10, right? Sit-in joint. I'm a big dude and barely fit in the cockpit of that thing. Had one rod holder right in front of me, and I thought I was the business. I got out there, and these boys had some rigs. Oh my god! And I fell in love, man. A year later, before our first tournament, we had a tournament on Lake Anna, which is a big body of water down here, and they have a warm side. So even when the main lake is frozen over solid, the warm side you could still fish. And we decided to hold a tournament there sometime mid-February, I think. And I called up the local Jackson dealer, and I said, hey, man, I saw you have this big tuna on clearance. I'm going to come buy it so I can win this tournament tomorrow. And he was like, all right, dude, cool, whatever. I was all hype on it. I went and I bought the boat, and next day I went out, and I killed it in the tournament. I almost killed myself. I fell in the water. I didn't know my boat well, and I turtled it in like 30 feet of water. Darn near drowned, but long story short, won the tourney, got to buy back all the gear I lost, and I was absolutely hooked on this sport. And yeah, that's the story, man. I love it.
And what area does Mid-Atlantic cover?
Wow. So our trail is kind of unique. Last year, we only really primarily fished Maryland with one PA event as an exception. But traditionally, MAKBF holds an event every month in a different state. So We'll do one in Maryland, then go to Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and West Virginia. They're all kind of clustered around each other here, and there's great bodies of water everywhere. This last year, we pulled back a little bit because we had established a relationship with Maryland Bass Nation to stand up the first kayak trail with Bass Nation out here in Maryland. But for 2021, we're deviating back out and touching some water outside of Maryland again, which is kind of the roots of what we do in this trail.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And also probably a headache.
A little bit. It can be. You got to make sure you don't step on toes. We do a lot of stuff in conjunction with other trails. We got to work with other trails. We reach out to Mike and his team pretty much annually, and we have a little throwdown up on the Susquehanna, or we run an event in parallel. So let the guys double dip and have a good old time. And we usually get a lot of heads out there. So that's that great camaraderie and community piece that we all really talk about. That's exactly what that is.
It seems like maybe with kayak fishing growing, a lot of people are like all the gaps of territory are being filled in by clubs, and it's hard not to step on each other nowadays.
Yeah, you got to be really considerate of everybody else's schedules, the bodies of water they're fishing, when they're fishing them. You even want to try to allow for no overlap, so that way your anglers have the opportunity to maximize who they compete with and when.
Oh yeah.
So it's very important to be considerate of those other trails.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, how about you, man?
Well, I started fishing since I've been, I want to say 8 years old in streams. And I went through my high school career. My buddy had a bass boat. We started fishing out of the bass boat. So I guess you can characterize me as kind of going backwards in the kayak fishing, without actually having one up until about maybe 6 years ago. So I was a competitive big boat guy. I started as a non-boater. I entered some of the federation tournaments as a non-boater, which means you go on someone else's boat. You learn the bigger bodies of water. Then a year into that, I ended up buying my own boat. So I'm an avid big boat guy for the last 16 years. I own my own boat, sponsored by Nitro Boats. And Thayer's Marine down the street from me because I'm out of Connecticut. And since I started Any Bass and being the owner of it, I started 7 years ago by myself. And I just really love the passionate fishermen out there and trying to grow something from the ground up. And I think over the last 7 years, we successfully have done that. So being a big boat guy, we fish big bodies of water, but there's always that spot where you can get onto your feet, like reservoirs. You're like, man, I wish I could hit that rock or that rock wall or that ledge, 30, 50 yards out. And now all of a sudden it kind of just all fell together. I said, I'm going to go get a kayak. I was sponsored by Old Town Kayaks. And since now, now I'm fishing more kayak tournaments, but I have a really good mix of big boat tournaments, being a big boat director. New England Bass, and we're scattered around the New England area. We have multiple divisions where people can fish. And we have multiple directors underneath myself. We kind of work together, hinge up some dates, make sure it works for them. And we try to provide, really good tournaments that are a little bit smaller. We don't get 100 kayak tournaments. Nothing that around here based on our smaller lakes that we fish. Based on the state regulations, we always give us a number to max out at. We can't go over that threshold. And that's what we have out here. I know the KBF that we are partners with, they are coming out here to fish bigger bodies of water, and they are getting the permits for a larger number. So we kind of cater to that group of anglers, based on an area. Sometimes we have multiple divisions in specific states. And that's just because their states are so big where people don't want to travel. That's what I learned, a lot about fishing is you get a really good hardcore group of anglers who want to go travel, fish the KBF Nationals. We have a couple of our own directors / members going down with Jimmy to go fish the Temptation who actually qualified as well as fish those KBF Opens out there. So we also have a ton of anglers who are just kind of getting new into it. There's a ton of different level of anglers that we get. We go to shows during the off season. Unfortunately, because of COVID times, there's no there's no shows, but that's where we meet a ton of newbies getting into the sport of bass fishing because they see it all over the place. Thanks to your podcast with Paddle and Fin, there's a bunch of other podcasts and they just keep popping up more and more, just like kayak fishing is. So I appreciate you having us on the show, and we just keep growing and we just offer anglers an opportunity to fish and to try to compete and earn their way to either our regionals or qualify for the KBF National Championship.
Cool. Awesome. And then, so what areas does Northeast Bass cover?
Yeah, so New England Bass Uncovers, we're in Connecticut. We've been in Mass. We've been in Rhode Island. We've been in New York, but New York is for our big boat series. We're in Vermont. We've been in New Hampshire. So we've been throughout the entire New England area, Rhode Island, Cape Cod. We've been all over the place at some point in the last 7 years. Now we kind of focus on in 2021, we'll have divisions in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Mass as far as kayak fishing goes. And we do offer the kayak single series, which I think most of you guys fish currently. We also started a team series 3 years ago. A bunch of us got together, and it gives the opportunity for people who are friends to kind of be competitive from a team-based situation compared to just being competitive from a single. So we offer both of those different divisions, which is kind of cool. And there's obviously a membership through our organization that's kind of how we keep running. But any angler, once they're a member, they have access to any of those states and any bass and tournament scattered throughout the region. So people can jump around, travel through us, as well as pick their own dates and travel with other clubs and organizations scattered around the country as well.
That's awesome. We dabbled with the team thing in a throwdown one time, and we limited it to 2-man teams. That way you didn't have, the 5 best guys stacking a team out. And that was something I think that if you could see more of it, I think it'd take off in kayak fishing for sure. Totally different dynamic when you're, because like we made a small rule where each angler has to catch at least one scoreable fish, etc. And it just, I don't know, it took everybody's mindset out of the normal tournament, and it was a great time. I bet y'all have a killer turnout with that.
Yeah, and we try to promote. We have a lot of younger anglers as well who are trying to get into the sport of it just through high school. I mean, I'm a high school teacher myself, and I have a bunch of friends who are also high school fishermen as well. Who are high school teachers who started their own little fishing programs or clubs. So we started our own high school series the last 2 years, which has been great. Just seeing it's actually a high school kayak division created and directed by high school kids to build their resume, and bringing together and taking charge and leadership and time management skills through us and myself trying to coach them. One of our directors over the last couple of years, he just left this past season. He got almost a full ride to go fish in Tennessee based on his resume and just him loving the sport of bass fishing. So he was fishing with us, he was directing with us, and then now he's left. So now we have to find someone else for 2021, which we do have some co-directors interested, but it's just a cool thing to kind of see it grow and these kids be able to fish and compete versus also adults, because now they also have access to the adult divisions. But I mean, just a sport in general, just like Josh was saying, it's a lot cheaper to have a kayak nowadays and have a 65,000 bass boat that's in my other garage in the back with no gas and everything else. So I love the fact that kayak fishing, you get to fish waters that you can't get accessible through a big boat, or on foot. So it's you get to fish a lot of skinny water and on a lot of pads and weeds that you just can't get to in a big boat. So everything's great. I mean, we're staying busy. We have about 300 to 400 members every year. We try to work with some local clubs, but unfortunately, just like Dan was saying, there's only so many days, so many dates, so many bodies of water. Someone's going to cross over somebody at some point, and you just can't take it to heart, unfortunately. And it's a growing sport for everybody, and there's plenty of anglers who are interested in doing it, and all of us have been doing this long enough. There's definitely more fishermen out there than there are competitive fishermen. They just haven't joined yet, or partaked in some. But yeah, again, I appreciate you guys having us on, and anything you guys need, I'm here to help. So
yeah, man. All right, Mike. Last but not least, how about you, man? How'd you get into this?
Well, I've been fishing my whole life. I did a lot of competitive bass boat fishing up to about 9 years ago. And one of the fellows in my club, and you may have heard of him, Bernie Stewart, who has the river stick out. He brought a kayak to one of our bass boat tournaments and wouldn't let me leave till I got in it, and been kind of hooked ever since. 2 years later, I sold my bass boat and been strictly in a kayak ever since. I enjoy the camaraderie of it. The people that are out there are a different type of fisherman on the grassroots level. Now, as you move up competitive wise, it gets a little more intense. But even then, I don't think it's near what it was when I was back in the bass boat tournaments. And that's one thing I enjoy. I started as director of Central PA 8 years ago. When I decided to start a club in Central PA, there was already a club in Western Pennsylvania called Kayak Anglers. And I thought the best way to find out what was going on and not make a bunch of mistakes was talk to the fellow that was running that at the time, was Noah Heck. And he gave me the pointers of what to do, what not to do, what they ran into problem-wise. And before you know it, he called and he said, hey, how about we open another chapter in PA? And instead of opening your own chapter, come under our leadership. Worked for me. It was a money-saving prospect on mine, and with less insurance and all that kind of stuff. And it's grown ever since. Kayak Anglers now has 4 divisions in PA, 1 in New York, 1 in Ohio. Last year we had 320 paid members. So, I mean, it's just growing and growing every year, which is a great thing. But yet we try to keep our costs way down, and it's all volunteer. Everybody that works in the groups, no matter what chapter, no matter whether you're judging fish, whether you have a director's position, it's all volunteer. And, to me, that's amazing that you can keep something going for this amount of years and keep the same people pretty much in it, pushing it. That shows me what a good base of fishermen we have and how easy it is to get along with them all and not run into a lot of hassles.
Well, there you go.
What give us some area of where y'all fish, some of y'all's favorite body of waters that y'all hit?
Yeah, the Central PA chapter, we basically run right up through the center of PA on the Susquehanna River, which was always one of the premier smallmouth fisheries around. Now it has taken a hit in the last few years, but it is coming back again. So we fish a lot of moving waters in Central PA, but we also try to mix it up every year. We put it up to the vote to the members of how many lake events they want, how many moving water events they want. And this year they decided on 3 moving water events and 2 lake events, which is a pretty good mix because we have a lot of real good sticks on moving water, and it takes some of that away by going to the lakes then that are in our area are usually real heavy pressured, and it's a totally different kind of fishing than fishing the rivers.
And you say the Susquehanna. I've heard other people say this. It's been hurt in the last few years by catfish, right?
Well, it's twofold. The flathead catfish has taken off ridiculously. I mean, if you like fishing for flathead catfish, it's great, but they're eating machines basically. But I think one of the biggest things that hit us the last 3 years is real high water in the springs coming down from New York, floods a lot of their sewage treatment plants out, and it basically comes down to Susquehanna. Mm-hmm. And what happens in the free-flowing part of the Susquehanna, which would be Harrisburg North, it doesn't affect the fishing quite as much because it doesn't give it enough time to get into the sediment base of the river. Now, as soon as it passes Harrisburg, the Lowhead Dam, then from there down to the Chesapeake, there's actually 4 pools that are dam controlled. So as soon as that current dies down, all that pollution's settling down in the wintering holes, which if you're familiar with a smallmouth wintering on a river, it'll go to the deepest hole and just lay in the mud.
Yep.
And now you have all that bacteria and everything else down there. And it really took a toll on the fish for a couple years. Now, last year, we didn't have it near as bad. We saw a little better spawn and a lot better fry. A lot of our fry will grow to 6-8 inches in 1 year, which is testament to the nutrients that are in the Susquehanna. But it'll come back. It's just a matter of Mother Nature cures itself as long as man keeps his hands away, but that's hard to do.
Oh yeah. I'm just curious on this. I get kind of nerdy on this stuff. So was the pollution causing a lot of fish to die, or was it mostly just causing them to move out of the area?
I think it killed a lot of them off. I mean, I have a lot of friends that guide on the Susquehanna, and in the winter cold months in the wintering holes, they were all complaining the same thing. Every fish they were catching was had a lot of lesions on it and that sort of thing. But then in the flip side of that, they'd also say that if you pull up, turn your fish finder on in a wintering hole, they said the bottom of it would be solid flatheads. and then you find a few bass at the front and a few bass at the back. Whereas those wintering holes in years past, before the flatheads moved in, I mean, they'd hold 100 bass at a time. So, it's kind of a twofold thing, but it'll eventually ease itself out because the flatheads eat themselves too. So as they finally, same way with snakeheads on the Potomac, they'll find a level keel there, hopefully within the next few years, and slow down the process a little bit.
And did they get there from the floods?
The flatheads?
Yeah.
I really couldn't tell you that. I mean, they're non-native. Whether they were brought in or brought up to about 2 years ago, they really didn't go much past Harrisburg. And the last 2 years, we've seen them as far as 15, 20 miles up the tributaries like the Juniata, and they're starting to get into the north and west branch. So they're moving, north at a pretty brisk pace.
Yeah, we call those redneck biologists down here. They do all kind of crazy stuff. All right, so we'll start with a question here. How about motors? Is that y'all probably all allow motors, right?
Yep, we do.
Yeah, we do.
No, we do not. We're still our one motto is we're people powered and purpose driven. So we push the no motors aspect and charity aspect as hard as anything. Okay.
Yeah, since this is the third one we've done, it's interesting to hear how some clubs, what all the differences are between all the different clubs. How about limits? Is it all 5 fish limits with y'all?
We're actually switching up to 5 as of 2021. We've been a 3 fish limit for everything except for our championships up until now. But the level of competition is so stout with our field of anglers that we decided we're going to move it up to 5 and see who can separate themselves from the pack. And that's really it, man. We've got guys that travel nationally to compete and do really well. They started out fishing with us and still come back and still fish with us. But the traveling from state to state and fishing rivers, lakes, tidal bodies of water have made them very well-versed, very well-rounded anglers. So we decided to go ahead and bump that limit up and see what they can do.
I've always, my whole thought process on it is when you go 5, you can, like you said, it'll change it up a little bit because it takes away the chance of one big fish, making the big difference. Like our club down here is 3 fish, and we had a guy that caught a 25 and 2 17s, and he'll straight admit, if I had not caught the 25, then I would have had a mediocre day. If you had caught a 25 and a guy, 2 17s, 2 15s, and you have a guy catch all 19s, it just changes the dynamic up of how the scoring goes. I think 5 should be just the standard, everywhere with all big trails, all the national guys doing it. 5 is just a, nice standard to get you ready for wherever you're going.
Well, I'll tell you what, we, like I said, we've done 3 fish from our inception, and we've got some absolute hammers. Jedediah Plunkett, who he's been an MAKBF guy since the beginning. Yeah, I think everybody in the kayak fishing world has, and if they don't, they've been under a rock. But he took the season off from us this last season and went and laid some wood with Mike and his team over there. But that dude would come out consistently and put up 3 fish stringers that were 58 to 61 inches consistently. And then this past season, at MAKBF, we had 2 or 3 different guys. A guy named David Burt, who was our rookie of the year and came pretty close to being our angler of the year as well. That was putting up, him, Steve Sisto, a couple other guys were putting up 58-inch to 68-inch limits, in multiple tournaments. And, we had to pull back and say, yeah, we got to give some people a chance here. If you can go out there and hit, high 90s to 100 inches, hell yeah, you deserve to win it, right? But let's make it a little bit bigger. And aside from just the potential of winning the tournament, right? We also work with Dr. Joe Love, Maryland Tidal Bassing Manager, who he does a lot of the fish catch surveys for the big bass tournaments out here, bass boats. And now with us, the kayak tournaments as well. Our secretary, Adam Hugaboom, is on that same title Black Bass Council. And, doing the 5 fish limits is going to help us submit a little more accurate fish catch counts, which kind of helps them in tracking, growth progress, especially with us using CPR format, they're able to see the size and quality and quantity of those fish in certain fisheries that we're fishing that maybe don't get the same level of attention or same, surveys, things like that, right? So we just felt like stepping up to 5 across the board was very beneficial in a lot of aspects for us.
That's awesome to hear. We had a club last week that they had the same thing, that, they work directly with the DNR and everything with their fish catch data, and that's big. Like I wish more states and clubs could come down with deals like that, because all that data helps. I mean, maybe you never know. Maybe data like that could have prevented or helped slow things down, like with Asian carp in Kentucky Lake, or with the flatheads and on the Susky, stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike even mentioned it. We've got the northern snakeheads here. We've got them and the blue cats on the tidal Potomac, but the northern snakehead, they reproduce unlike any other fish I've ever seen. I think it's twice a year, and they are ferocious, predators. I mean, they're apex as far as their little food chain goes.
And they look awesome.
And they're the most amazing tasting fish you'll probably ever eat. And if you haven't had them, God, picture a crappie fillet that's 30 inches long. And there you go.
Oh yeah,
it's money.
Now I get it.
It's so good. But God, I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. I started thinking about eating fish.
Same. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just like, ooh.
But yeah, the tracking, right? So we do hold, at least 1, if not 2 events on the tidal Potomac every year. And the northern snakehead and the other invasive species, they try to keep as much data on them and get as much data on them as they can. We haven't worked with them so much or too much in the past, the DNR that is. However, that relationship's growing as they take notice of kayak fishing and our tournaments, and the fact that we're not out there just running and gunning and trying to cash checks, but there's a little more to it, right? There's the conservation piece. There's that catch photo release. What data can they get from us that could benefit our fisheries, right? So we're really looking forward to working with them more and seeing if we can't contribute more to helping improve the fisheries that we enjoy.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was maybe Georgia that has the rule, but you are not allowed to release a snakehead if you catch it, correct?
No, that's not correct, actually. So the tidal Potomac is Maryland and Virginia primarily. And they now, you can't keep them. You can't transport them live. So if you do keep them, you have to kill them. But you can catch, photo, release a snakehead as well. Okay. And there's a lot of advocates for the northern snakehead that are trying to get the rules around them so they're changed to a game fish that's more regulated. Because right now they're an invasive species and there's no regulation. You can go out there and kill 100 of them in a day and keep them all if you wanted. But what's happening is we've got bow fishermen, and they go out there and they'll kill 30 to 60 of them, and they'll leave them on the bank. They won't take them, clean them, nothing. It's like, okay, I got it. You enjoy the sport of bow fishing, but now what? You could put that fish to good use. You could feed some folks with it, right? But people are lazy and careless.
You can't sell them? It seems like an invasive species. You could probably sell it, right?
I mean, you can, but you have to have commercial licensing, I believe, to do that. Yeah. I mean, God, I'll tell you what. My wife is Cambodian, Chinese, and Vietnamese. And when her mom found out that they had northern snakehead out here, she's out in California where we're from originally. She went out and bought a freezer and asked me to start mailing her fish because where they're from in Cambodia, it's a delicacy, and rightfully so. I mean, it's amazing.
Hey, you're the first person I've heard that's had a good explanation for it.
Yeah.
But
I'll break it down.
Big crappie is like, okay.
I
should have said that before. I get it.
Look like I'll tell you what, they are slimy and nasty. They got some teeth that are unreal. I mean, they got layers of teeth like a little miniature shark, man. But But the actual fillets, once you get that slimy ass skin cut off, the fillets is like some of the whitest, flakiest, sweetest meat. You know, you fry it in some panko breadcrumbs and throw it on a bed of jasmine rice and throw a little salt on that joint. You're good, man. It's absolute money.
Hey, catfish are slimy and greasy and smell bad too. They taste amazing when you fry one up.
You wouldn't touch a catfish again if you had this stuff.
Hey, no, I'll tell you, if I had a way to get that much crappie style meat without all that work, hey, I'm in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well,
They are a blast to catch. I'll say that.
What's that?
I say they are a blast to catch.
I've heard that it's a good fight too.
They're like little freshwater tarpon. As soon as you hook them, they're up out of the water, and even when you have them in the boat, they're snapping at you.
Oh yeah,
they got an attitude.
Well, we're gonna get away from the paddle and fin fish cooking corner over here. We got off subject a little bit. So, Jamie, what's y'all's limit? 5, 3, 4?
Yeah. So our kayak series traditionally, you know, like everybody else, when we first started off, we have stuck to the 3 fish limit for our kayak series, but we have bumped it to 5 fish since we started for the kayak team series that we have. You know, unlike Josh, we're not getting 50 to 100 kayakers, you know, based on highly competitive. We do have a slew of people who obviously are, you know, highly competitive, but we're also going for that angler who just wants to just start, see what these tournaments are about. And I think the majority of the directors that, you know, that we have, there's like 24 of us. When we did talk about it last year to try to up it, they were like, you know, it gives everybody a shot if there's 3 going on the complete difference of what Josh was saying, as far as, you know, if all those guys can catch 3 fish, then yeah, by all means bump it up. But we don't, our whole level of anglers that we have, not everybody can catch 3 fish. Some get 2, some get 3. And don't get me wrong, there's anglers who are catching 10, 20 fish a day. It's just, if we did that, I would say there would be maybe half the field, maybe even more than 3/4 of the field would have 5 fish, but there would be kids or older adults and people who are just novices. They wouldn't get it. And I don't know if it would have a positive impact or a negative impact. So we've just kept it to 3 for right now. And, you know, it might change down the road. But that's what we're doing.
This is probably the one argument in our sport that I think that there's no wrong way to do it, honestly, because there's positives if you look at it one way and negatives, and the same thing for both. You know, either like Josh said, you've got the guys that are consistently on top, and that's why you need that movement, or you've got a lot of newbies, a lot of youngs, guys catching 1, 2 fish or blanking, and that keeps them in the hunt. So it's I don't think there's any. I mean, was it Queen City that does 4? Is that right, Dan? I mean, you could always step up to.
We've even talked about that 4. Yeah, we've talked about it. So we'll see. Maybe we'll reconvene in a couple more months just before our season and see what we could do from there. But yeah, we're always open to make changes and kind of go with the times and kind of keep up with everybody else. So,
heck yeah, man. Got you, Mike.
In the past, we've always been 3 fish limit in our regular events. And then each chapter holds what we call a major event each year with a higher entry fee. And with that, we go with the 5 fish limit because of the higher entry fee and the bigger number of anglers that they usually bring to the major events. I think Josh, his group came up to our one major a couple of years ago. We had 101 anglers on the Susquehanna.
Wow.
And there again, Jed Plunkett happened to win that one. But, you know, it was a real good payout with the major entry fee, and with the 5 fish limit, it kept everybody in it to the end. It was a really close tournament. This year, I think there is some discussion of maybe upping it to 5. And then we also do some special events, like we run charity events. We do what's called a 360 challenge in the spring when our waters are actually closed and we can't hold anything organized with more than 10 people. Here in Central PA, what we do is we take 6 anglers a week and let them fish any body of water they want for 6 hours, 360 minutes. And then each week's winner goes into a final beginning of June where we usually give a kayak away to that. And there again, we'll probably go with a 5 fish limit on that this year, just because last year when we instituted it, there was so many fish being turned in that it's going to even things out across the board, I believe, a lot better. We kept the 3 fish for a long time under the same understanding that new people coming in gives them a little more opportunity to get there. But then we were seeing the same thing, that every event was being the top 5 were the same 5 people. So by going with a little higher limit, I think that'll even some of that out. And, time will tell, and we can always go either way. But for now, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think I wish more clubs, some clubs get, stuck in their ways, and it's fine. But, I mean, what's the harm in 1 year trying something? I mean, you take the data you get from it and you can either go back to what you used to do or stick with the times or whatever direction you went. But I was going to ask you a question just because I'm genuinely interested in fishing the Susky. That's y'all's thing. Best time of year to be out there. What do you say?
Best time if you want to fish it for big fish is actually during the closure. It's another, I don't know if you're familiar with PA regulations, but bass season is closed from the second weekend in April to the second weekend in June, where it's no harvest statewide, but you can catch. You can't hold any events. You can't do catch, photo, release, but you can catch and release fish. And anytime from end of March to the second week in June, if you get the right water conditions, or if you ever want to come up and fish it in real high water, give me a shout. I'll put you in some tributaries that you'll go in, and I mean, you can have a 70, 80 fish day with half of them over 16 inches.
Wow.
It's just it's an amazing time to fish in the springtime on the Susky. And also the Juniata tributary to the Susky. It's actually just as good, probably better numbers wise right now, but not size wise. We had a lot of tournaments. I know Jeff Little and Jed Plunker came up and fished one of Drew Gregory's tournaments that was held here in the fall in conjunction with one of our events on the river. And they both turned in over 100 inches on 5 fish, 5 smallmouth. With Jeff actually took a picture of a 6.7. So that's the biggest one I've ever seen come out of this.
I don't know how my heart would handle a 6.7 smallie. I would stroke out, hope somebody caught it before it went back in the water.
I don't know how much smallmouth fishing you've done, but if you've done a lot of lake smallmouth fishing, and I think Josh will back me up on this, the fish in the Susky are a whole nother strength level.
Oh, dear Lord, yes.
In other words, you hook a 15-inch and you're going to swear you got a 20.
Yeah,
you get it in.
That's me. I do a lot of moving water stuff in the South, and I'm North Alabama, and we surprisingly do have smallies, and it always blows my mind. Like an 18-inch smallie that might barely weigh 2 pounds will drag you all over that little creek or river.
Yeah.
And that's what interests me about. Like I watched I think it was the Hobie that was on the Susky last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of just dumb to what the Susquehanna was. And after seeing that, I'm taking notes because that's like right up my alley. Moving water, smallmouth, and y'all definitely will have more size than we will. So that's why I got it down every
message. We'll get you in the good spots.
Heck yeah.
Mike,
Jimmy, I tell you that water was so skinny up there, man. Oh, sorry, Jamie. Go ahead.
No, man.
I was going to say the water during that BOS was so shallow, just skinny. I mean, the river was ultra low. And I personally don't even think the river showed out in contrast to what it's capable of, man. That place is magical.
So
if you ever get a chance.
Better when it's high.
Mike, what do you say? I mean, I'll fish it no matter what. But
not exceedingly high, except in the springtime. Even flood levels in the springtime, as long as you time it with the water clarity, the fishing can be phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys.
If you guys get a chance, go back and check out Jeff Little's fish from a couple years ago. It'll move you to tears. I swear to God.
Mike, those dates that you gave in the Susky, is that spring or is that going into the spawn?
Yeah, that would basically be during the spawn. Fish up here, the first wave will start coming in probably around the middle to beginning of March, depending on water conditions and temperature. And I've seen them spawn all the way into the end of June, in 2 or 3 waves. Usually the bigger fish are the first to come in, and it seems to get progressively smaller after that, but the numbers will go up.
Yeah, we have the same situation. I mean, we don't have your big of rivers out there that we have out here. We have the Connecticut River that goes into the ocean out here, which is our biggest river that flows through Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all the way into the ocean. But it's the same thing. Like the spawn usually is, to the end of March, later in the March, because the water's still cooler coming down from the mountains in Vermont and such. But it usually fishes very well when it floods and the backwaters start to rise, because that's where those fish are going, for food and trying to find their spot to hunker down. But and based on that smallie, man, we had for our regional championship, which we have at the end of every year for each of our divisions that we run, our kayak team, and our big boat divisions. I don't know if any of you guys ever fished the St. Lawrence River. Any of you guys?
I want to.
Well, if you haven't,
on my list.
Have you, Mike?
No, but it's on my list.
Mine too.
You should put it on all of your list. We ended up catching a 6'9" smallie on day one. That was our first fish of the tournament for our big boat tournament series. We didn't have the kayaks out there. It's not necessarily it's not a very safe place to be on a kayak, depending on where you're going, just because that river is so strong and there's so many giants out there. I mean, I'm sure you guys watch MLF or all the pros and stuff and Main Lake River stuff, but we ended up catching a 6'9". That was the first fish you caught. And it, like all of our hearts just stopped. And when I was in the net, I think we just hung out for about 5 minutes, laid on the boat, and then just got after it again. But they're just giants in that place. And the numbers there are completely crazy, nonstop. So if you guys ever go there, definitely, I could highly recommend it. We're going back again for our regional championship in August again. We'll be up there. So it's an exciting place, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but just
getting all sorts of good notes, man.
Yeah,
my list of destinations is getting kind of out of hand.
That's a bad thing about this podcast. Like, you want to go to all these different places. It's tough to do, but the fishing's so great around the country.
I think the KBF's having one of their events. I don't know if you guys ever fished Candlewood Lake in Connecticut.
I knew they were going there, but no, I've heard of it and never been there.
Mike and Josh, you ever fished it before? Because you guys are close.
Nah, man. Ken Wood and Gardner both tell me about it, especially Ken Wood, but I have yet to go up there myself.
Yeah, so Candlewood's like technically our number one lake in Connecticut. It's in the Bassmaster magazines. It's probably right. I think last time I checked, it was like 12th or 14th in the country just for smallmouth. That's what it's known for. Years ago, I wish, Mike, we actually had regulations in Connecticut. I've always been a advocate for it, to not catch fish during the spawn or not have tournaments. I feel like it just, especially for the big boat side of things, when they catch the fish off a bed, they're putting it in the live well, they're going away, they're transferring fish and move location. That fish is never going back and find its bed again. Whether some other fish goes and takes the bed, who knows? But I wish we had regulations in Connecticut, because I feel like the fishing in Connecticut would definitely get back to where it used to be. There's still great lakes to fish and ponds and such, but I wish we had some more regulations in Connecticut, and I don't know why they won't. I know when we started 7 years ago, when we first talked to the DEP in Connecticut, they were so excited that we were just doing catch, measure, release, because we were the first ones to do it ever in Connecticut. And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean? You're not catching fish? How many? No, it's all catch, measure, release. So we can catch as many fish as we want. There's no culling. There's no nothing." But that's just the nip. It definitely, if you guys can come down to Candlewood tournament, that would be a good one. I actually purposely cleared my schedule, I think, from my director role to get out there on the Old Town, hopefully in May when they're fishing.
That's awesome.
Cool. So something that I'm always interested in is, y'all have a lot of permit issues, right? Like, can you kind of talk about that and how permits work and how many people you can have and things like that and those issues? Because we don't have that down here where I live in Alabama.
That's because you guys are spoiled. That's why.
Yeah, but like you just said, like, we catch fish all year, and we're stunting the growth of our fisheries and there's no rules.
No, like, I agree. Like you were saying, like, I've actually sent an email before to Lake Gunnersville. Like, it's gotten hammered so heavy by the big boats, and there's 5 million local tournaments. I think that it doesn't even have to be permanent, but I would think for 3 years, regulate the fishing during, February to May. And because they've talked about how the fish numbers have gone down, the size, etc., which last year didn't show that. Every tournament that was there was putting up huge bags. But yeah, go ahead, get into the permit thing.
Another championship. They just had it at Gunnersville in 2020, right? Is that where they were?
Yep.
Yeah. One of our Anibassa members actually took the whole event down. Matt Content. He's right from Massachusetts. One of our boys. He actually just texted me out before this podcast.
Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a great dude, and he repped all of our gear, just being true to his colors and where we came from. Speaking of Grassroots, but as far as permit goes, I don't know what you guys have in Pennsylvania or guys in Maryland, but our permits in the Northeast are kind of based on the size of the body of water, which also coincides to the size of the ramps. So in Connecticut specifically, they do not give any permits larger than what half of the ramp can hold. So for instance, if the boat launch at Lake X holds 20 boats, they won't give us anybody a permit, club organization, a permit more than 10 boats. Based on the kayak side of things, 10 boats is referring to 10 trailer spots.
Right.
Where they will now permit us for 20 kayakers after trying to fill them in and educate them years ago. So they understand that we could fit 2 cars back to back, which equals a truck and a boat or a trailer. So we get 20 spots. Based on that 10 spot requirement. Now, when you guys go to, like the Candlewood events, it's always half. That's just how it runs in Connecticut. I think in Massachusetts, they do something similar to that, but I know in some locations that's solely based on the size of the body of water. Also, Mass has a weird rule, which is why we can never host a regional out there for us anyways, is because once you get over the 24 angular threshold, you have to have Massachusetts like DEP officer insurance that has to stay there the whole duration of the time of the event, which is like $500. So you're losing $500 of entry fees to go put towards someone to sit there and watch the ramp while you guys are fishing. It's there.
Don't steal your stuff, or
no, it's only in Massachusetts as far as I know. Connecticut doesn't do that. New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island. Nobody else does that.
What's the benefit of it? I mean, obviously you don't like it because you can't get the permit there, but what's the benefit of that person being there?
For the state to make some money, I have no other. It's not like he's regulating it and like checking fish or doing conservation stuff with us. But that's why we never have hosted a regional event in Massachusetts, because it just we get over 24 anglers at our regionals, but that's kind of how that works as far as permit goes. So we're kind of confined. So we can't run like you guys, Mike and Josh. You guys are running 50 to 120 people events. We just can't physically do that at one location or one ramp. The only way to do it is if they had multiple ramps, then we would have to secure each ramp. And a lot of our events, we unlike the KBF, where you can kind of go wherever you want to go and launch wherever you want to launch from, we are that organization that kind of, hey, this is the one ramp we're meeting at. We have a morning meeting. We talk, any questions, concerns, and we all blast off together at the same time. And I know other clubs kind of say, hey, the tournament starts at 7:30. Go whenever you want, lines in the water at 7:30. So we kind of do things a little bit more, I guess, regulated, if you want to call it that. Maybe it's the wrong word. Just so it's kind of everyone's together. There's no separation, and you kind of go from there. So
okay,
that's how that works.
How about you?
PA wise, we pretty much have to permit anything over 10 anglers. I will give the Fish Commission props on the fact that they're very thorough in getting the permits back to you. They'll work with you as far as I know. With us using a lot of moving water, sometimes we get flooded out high water. They'll work with us real easily as far as changing dates, that sort of thing. There's no cost to the permits, with the exception of if you go to a state park, you will pay a fee to use the state park. And their basic thing looking at it is they don't want to tie one boat ramp up with 50 vehicles that only holds 30 vehicles. And we get a sort of away with a lot of that on the Susquehanna, because most of our events will cover like a 30-mile stretch of river that may have 8 launches in it. So, everybody's spread out or doing a float and that kind of thing. So it's really not a lot of crowding at the ramps. And then we'll try except with COVID this year, we always had a meeting spot at the end of the day where we'd either have some food, do the awards, give outdoor prizes, that sort of thing. Sometimes it was at a ramp. Sometimes it was at an outfitter, restaurant, whatever we could find that would allow us to be there and that we could maybe help them by being there. The permit process is fairly simple, but there again, we're cut down a little bit because, like I said, in the second week in April to the second week in June, you cannot hold a tournament. So as far as kayaks go, you're going from April, March, February, January, which we don't like to put anybody in the water on them conditions. I mean, not that a lot of our guys don't fish in dry suits and all that kind of stuff, but some guys don't, and you don't want to take a chance of sending them out there that early. So that basically puts our tournament season into June, July, August, September, and October. So we try to work everything in those, and with all the different divisions that we have, each division has 5 Angler of the Year tournaments. So right there's 30 tournaments a year that we've got to get fit in somewhere and not try to cross over dates and work with the other groups like Josh and Pennsylvania Kayak Fishing Association and all the other ones that, you know, everybody's working together and guys are cross entering from one to the other. So it helps everybody out. But yeah, the permit situation, and up till two years ago, on the Susquehanna, bass season was actually shut down from beginning of April to the second week in June, where you could not even fish for them. In other words, you were not even allowed on the water in the middle Susquehanna and upper Susquehanna to target bass at all in those times. They were trying to allow them to come back and give them a break during the spawn, and it really worked. I mean, a lot of guys were upset about it, but I'll give the Fish Commission props for it. I saw a huge increase in size of fish. As far as numbers, there was always a lot of numbers there, but you didn't have the size. And it really made a big difference that way. Now, a couple years ago, they opened it back up now to just catch and release. So we'll see how that holds up over the next couple years. But every 2 years on the Susquehanna, they actually do a survey and compare it back. I think it's 14 years ago. They started keeping data on the spawns and young of the year. And if it gets below a certain threshold, then they'll shut it down again, which, you know, to me is they're doing a heck of a job to keep it up that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, people complain all the time about like DNR and conservation, like things that they do, but it's all, I mean, for a reason. You know, I listen to a lot of like Western hunting podcasts, and when they get a wildlife biologist on, and they can actually break down, you know, this is why we don't, you know, we allow you to shoot 3 of these this year between, you know, 2,000 tags, blah, blah, blah. There's actually a lot of science in it. So, you know, trust your DNR people. If they're shutting you down, it's for a good reason, and it's just going to bring it back even better.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're not just trying to take your fishing away from you.
It's making sense like that. Like, they have a level. This is, if it goes below the level, they shut down. That makes total sense. Sometimes down here out in the Gulf, the snapper season, they do all kind of crazy stuff down here that to most people doesn't make sense. And then you have commercial versus, you know, the regular everyday guy fishing. And so that makes total sense for sure. All right, Josh, how about y'all, man? Do y'all have any permit issues down there?
Pretty much in line with what Mike was saying. You know, we have to get cozy with all of the different local state permitting folks because we work in several different states, and we got to make sure that we are abiding by their rules per each state. The state parks in Maryland are probably the toughest. They're 9 times out of 10 they drag their feet a bit, and they have some relatively high fees to use the bodies of water. Now, on the converse of that, those fishing bodies of water are usually stellar bodies of water. I have a favorite lake. I'm not even going to say it on here, but it's like a Maryland Trophy Lake, but they want an arm and a leg to host a tournament there. So, you know, it's a give and take. The tidal fisheries and the majority of the rivers and stuff, we don't run into the permitting issues as far as number of participants. At the onset of COVID, we did have to delay the start of our season. They had shut down all recreational fishing in Maryland initially. They said you were only allowed to go out and fish for sustenance. No tournaments were happening. And our secretary for our club, he's an active duty Marine, Adam Hugaboom. He penned this like opus of how to have these catch photo release tournaments and still abide by all the different COVID standards and measurements. And the Maryland DNR actually adopted that and pushed it out to their tournament directors, both in the basketball side and kayak side, and said, hey, here's kind of a framework of how you can now hold tournaments. And here's how we suggest you do it, rather than say live weigh-ins, which are traditionally how the glitter boats do it, right? So that was pretty cool to see. We were able to start kicking off our tournaments to do it again. We weren't able to have our large group gatherings, for awards and such, and the captain's meetings prior to, but we had, adapt and overcome, the virtual captain's meetings on Facebook, the award ceremonies after the fact, and then meeting up to deliver, any sponsored products to people that have won them. Was kind of how we managed to mitigate the issues that we encountered with COVID and everything else. Other than that, though, there haven't been any permitting issues, and we're hoping that 2021 is smooth. It's looking good so far from what I hear from the other guys that help run the trail.
Cool.
Awesome.
And kind of one question to kind of wrap this up. It's been about an hour now. If being a tournament director and having done it for a while, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to another, maybe a new club or a different tournament director, maybe another club that's not doing something as good as what they could? What's one piece of advice? We'll start with you, Mike.
Don't be afraid to review your rules if you have to. Stick to the rules that you have at the time, but if the next season you see something needs reviewed or needs updated, take a vote on it and try to get your people involved in it. Keep it fun. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. If guys come and enjoy themselves, they're going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back and bring their friends with them. So
that's right.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Jamie?
I mean, being an educator, I kind of run my business as I can run my classroom, I guess. You have to be kind of stern. You have to be firm. Just like Mike was saying, you have to be able to, if you have to go back to your rules, you have to have some rules, but you always have to be willing to adjust, hear other people's support or suggestions, and being able to come collectively as a group to be able to make those suggestions, make sure everyone's on the same page. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I became a director and / business owner of a fishing brand is because we wanted difference and we wanted change. And the biggest thing for us was to try to have a really fun family environment with a great atmosphere so people could come back and enjoy themselves fishing. And it wasn't so much political or groupies. It was just, hey, we're all here to have a good time. We're all here to catch some fish, and we're just sharing the passion and love for the same sport of bass fishing that you guys do. So
cool. Josh, how about you?
Man, I got a couple things really. One, it's a lot of work. So make sure you assemble a solid team that is going to be as dedicated as you are, so you're not doing it all yourself. It's a lot of heavy lifting. Listen to your anglers, right? Listen to the people the patrons of your trail. I mean, none of us are doing this to get rich, for damn sure. But that whole, if you build it, they will come. Well, they got to help you continue to build it, or they're going to leave, right? And lastly, don't try to poach other trails, man. That's a big one to me. Like,
some good advice there.
I'm a big fan of working with your neighbors, right? But if you're a brand new tournament director, don't reach out to an established trail and say, hey, man, how can I get your anglers to fish my tournament trail? Like, I get it. You want more people to come out to your events, and hell, we'd probably come out to them. But, just trying to slide into a group page or something and grab them anglers with a quick grab instead of doing the work. Nah, that's not the way to do it, man. That's not what this is about, right? That's kind of contrary to this community and what we're all trying to accomplish out here, in my opinion.
It's crazy that I can actually say I've seen a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, we've talked about before, it'll fizzle out because a lot of those people don't realize, like you said, like there's a lot of legwork. It's stress and a lot of talking, a lot of emails, and a lot of being angry and needing a drink. And
I'll tell you what,
get a taste of it, they're out.
I'll tell you what, Jimmy. So originally, this trail was started by one guy, Matt Baden, and then he passed it on to Matt Campbell, who did it for a couple of years. And now Matt has passed it on to Aaron White, who's our president, right? Matt Campbell is still part of a 5-man team that we have running MAKBF, right? We got a couple guys that judge fish, but we all collectively work on pieces. I do sponsorship. We got another guy that does all of the permitting. We got another guy that goes to all of the Bass Nation meetings and does all that organizational pieces. And really collectively, we're like a Voltron, right? Voltron's only as strong as all 5 lines put together, right?
I love it.
They're all pretty damn cool by themselves, but you get them together and they do some really cool shit. So that's kind of how I look at MAKBF. We're only as strong, we're much stronger together than we are solo, for sure. For anybody trying to start a trail. What's that now?
Nothing, man. You blew me away with that Voltron reference.
You want to talk about flashing back real fast? I just like, oh.
Hey, funny story. I bought my son a Voltron robot, a full-size one, probably a couple years ago, and he busted it out of nowhere yesterday. So that just made me think about it, and it was out of the corner of my eye. But I mean, it makes sense, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link, and if you're there's no I in team, right? I'll throw all the different cliches out there, but they're all there for a reason.
That's right.
And you can't be successful 100% on your own in doing these trails. And if you are, God bless you, because you've got more energy and time than I do.
Amen.
All right. Well, at the end of the show, we like to give everybody a chance to, give a shout out to any company or any person that makes your fishing easier and your trail too. Josh, since you're the sponsorship guy, we'll start with you.
For myself personally, I'd like to thank Jackson Kayak. I've been paddling Jackson Kayaks for a lot of years. I love the way they're laid out, and they've just taken good care of me ever since I've been part of the team. iRod, P-Line, Malone, Auto Racks. I mean, just a whole bunch of really cool deals. Oh, and Bending Branches. I just joined the Bending Branches team, which is pretty cool.
Me too.
I know I saw that, Jimmy. I saw your post. I'm not a brand whore by any means. If I associate myself with a particular product, it's because I believe in it and I enjoy using it avidly, and like to help other people get involved and use it and see the benefits of it, right? For MAKBF, we have a lot of the same sponsors. Our biggest ones these last couple years have been Malone and iRod this last year. They've done some really great things for us. Yak Attack, Kurag, Orion Coolers, Jackson Kayak. I mean, God, the list goes on. There's so many wonderful sponsors. And again, I know we do a lot of stuff to benefit them and market for them, but they do a lot of stuff for these trails and for these anglers, and they enable us to have these events and hand out prizes at the end, right? And that brings more people, and it's a wonderful circle of things. And without them, I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you, and thank you guys too, big time for having us on.
No, thank y'all. And Jamie, how about you?
Man, I want to thank my friends, family, my followers, especially my directors as well as members. I mean, there's no way I would have even started this. This wasn't even my idea. The whole New England Bass and Deal 7 years ago. It was a group of anglers who I was directing a national tournament trail for. They pushed me to kind of continue to grow something different. And so I want to thank to all those guys and everyone else who has followed us over the years to push me to be able to do this. Because as you guys all know, as directors and owners, it's a ton of work, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears. So I want to thank all those guys, as well as a bunch of my personal / any bass and sponsors, Goose Hummock Shops, Sublime Jerseys, Kistler Rods, Lou's Reels, New England Brewery, Twice the Spice, X-Zone Lures, The Rod Glove, Swagger Tungsten, Thayer's Marine, Shelter Logic, Calco's Fishing, Tightline Anchors, Pro Tournament Scales, Cabin Creek Baits, Z-Man, Cattails and Cornfields. Sorry for the long list, but we got a lot of people who helped us be successful. So I'm just going to wrap them all off. Trigger Happy Comfort Grips out of California, Yum and Head In, which is Lure Net, Crazy Bait, the Crazy Hick Bait Company, Cover Quest, Procure Sense, Kitech, Samantis Baits, Mayo's Hand Poured Baits, Anthony's Ocean View, and Jade's Jigs. So I appreciate everyone's support and followers and being able to bring us all together doing a sport we all love. So
awesome.
Sorry for the lengthy thing, but
No,
Hey, that's what they want out of you, dude. Like,
that's right. Yeah,
it never gets done correctly. Good job.
well, I had my phone here. I was kind of cheating. I couldn't. There was no way I was going to rip up all those babies off. So,
yeah, beer sponsor. That's like
I'll be honest.
sponsorships. All right, Mike. How about you?
Being 6 different chapters and 300 members, it's hard to get chapter-wide sponsors. But 2 I'd like to mention is Fishing Online. They've been with us for a long time, and real big supporters of us. And also the River's Edge Canoe and Kayak. They've been one of our sponsors just about from the beginning, and have stood behind us throughout the years when we needed them. With the 6 different chapters, we rely a lot on each chapter going out and finding their own local sponsors. Here in Central PA, Shanks Mare Outfitters, Blue Mountain Outfitters, and 5 Mountain Outfitters have all helped us throughout the years as far as prizes, discounts, helping guys out when they're on the water, if they need us shuttles, that kind of stuff. And that's a big help. My personal sponsor is my wife. Without her, I wouldn't be doing this. And, I appreciate everything she's put up with over the years, all the time going, and the time me sitting at the kitchen table at home 4 hours a night trying to answer emails and questions and that kind of stuff. So she's what keeps me going.
That's right.
That's
all right. We appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for being on. And we don't have any tournaments to talk about. There wasn't no trails run this weekend, so nothing to go over there. But everybody, stay safe, be out there, bring your splash bag, and wear your PFDs. We'll see y'all again next week.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in this week, everybody. The Reel Down was brought to you by the Dugout Bait and Tackle in Marietta, Georgia. They have everything you need for your next fishing adventure, from rods, reel, line, and tackle, all the way up to Hobie fishing kayaks. They carry all your favorite brands like G. Loomis, St. Croix, Shimano, and many, many more, as well as all of our best bait company. Give them a like and follow, and head on over to the Dugout Bait and Tackle today, and be sure and tell them that Paddle and Fin sent you.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com